October 17th, 2018 was an historic day because it was the first time in my lengthy working career that an employer has sent me out to buy recreational drugs.
2018 was the year when Canada legalized recreational marijuana after nearly a century of prohibition.
I drove to the closest legal store, which was in Mirabel. The store was located in a tawdry strip mall where the video store was the biggest tenant. I got there half an hour before it opened. Huge lineup. I talked to lots of people there. One of the people told me it was like Christmas for pot smokers.
On October 16th, one of my editors called to see if I wanted to go to Newfoundland. The story was the first gram of pot to be sold legally in Canada. I ended up hitching a ride basically with Bruce Linton, who is the CEO of Tweed, and fortunately he had a private jet, which was very nice, and myself and some other media and some of his staff, we flew to Newfoundland that night.
I think one of the stories that caught me a little by surprise this year, and it shouldn't have, was Canopy growth out in Smiths Falls. That's Canada's biggest marijuana manufacturer. I've been covering this story since 2013. I remember going out there to see what a couple of entrepreneurs, Bruce Linton and Chuck Raffici, had done. They'd acquired the former Hershey plant, and there was 3 cars in the lot. And so I went out to Smiths Falls in the summertime, and I was just stunned to see there were at least 500 cars in the parking lot. A lot of them were workmen. They were building a manufacturing operation. Canopy had, if not completely filled the old Hershey plant, it was pretty close to, and they were also building and refurbishing buildings across the street.
The evolution of cannabis this year and over the last 18 months, let's say, has been really interesting because pot shops until October 17th were illegal, and yet they weren't getting shut down very much. There were the occasional raids by Ottawa police, but mostly there weren't. Mostly these guys were continuing to break the law. I'm sure the police have had great relief in finally seeing legalization because the Citizen, our editorial board, and many others were criticizing them. There's no sense having a law in the books if you don't enforce it. And the illegals were getting away with pot shop locations all over the city. People were unhappy, communities were unhappy, and I don't blame them.
Just before legalization day, virtually all of the dispensaries shut down. In the meantime, all of the clerks who had been charged with drug trafficking when police raided the dispensaries were going through the court system. Most of them have been through the court system now, and the vast majority of them received discharges, which means they don't have a criminal record.
When the store opened, there were 200 people in line. So I got in the back of the line. I interviewed a bunch of people beforehand, and they were there for a number of reasons. Some were there just because it was an historical day. A lot of them, I thought it was interesting, would not give their name to me. They would speak to me but not give their name, as though there was still something wrong with it. And in fact, one of the people in lineup came up afterwards to explain why, and he just pulled out his wallet and flashed me his police badge.
When we first arrived there was a lineup around the block, down the corner. These people have been there for a number of hours already. There was 2 people at the beginning of the line, and they were chosen to be the first to buy pot in Canada. Nikki Rose, and she was a young woman and really excited about the prospect of being able to buy pot legally, and talked about the benefits of pot over liquor. And then there was an older gentleman, his name was Ian Power, and he actually had been born with a club foot, and he had scoliosis, and he had displaced hips. And, you know, for him, pot was mainly medicinal. And he was just welcoming the fact that he could now go without shame, get something that was obviously really helpful to him for years at a reputable store. And he knew what he was buying, and hopefully the price would be somewhat the same. So one was kind of a proponent, ironically, for medicinal pot, and the other was recreational pot.
One guy who proved to be my pot sensei, and he was giving me lots of tips and advice, said if you wanted to feel like a 5-year-old, get the blue dream. I didn't know what that meant. If you want to be like a 5-year-old, does that mean going to bed early? Or?
One thing about the illegal pot shops was that they were very, very popular. And as anyone who lived near one can attest, people would be coming in and out all day. And I'm someone who lived down the street from one. And one thing I noticed while they were there is that there was never any on-street parking, because people would just be coming in and out all day and parking to go to the pot shop and then leave. As soon as the pot shop closed, once marijuana became legalized, all of a sudden there was nothing but space. And the side of our street, there was no cars there was no people. It became a ghost town, which was just a very small quirk and oddity in the whole saga of marijuana in the city and legalization.
I live in a pretty middle-class neighborhood, very boring place. But now it's very hard to take a walk without just smelling that little wafting cannabis smell in the air right in the neighborhood. And I can't tell you which houses it's coming from, but it's normal now, and I never would have smelled that before.
So as we go towards the end of the year, one of the big questions that remains and will remain for years to come is just how this legalization of marijuana will affect society. Will smoking pot or taking pot in other forms, which will be legal within the next year, become more commonplace? Will it be like drinking a beer or having a glass of wine with dinner? Will the number of people who use cannabis increase? Stay tuned.